Listen, parents, I'm willing to bet that your kids have had their eyes, their ears, their nose, their throat, their heart, their lungs, all of that checked out. But never the central nervous system. Never the central nervous system that runs every single other function in our body. That piece is missed. And nervous system dysregulation is at the root of so many of the challenges and the struggles and the medical issues that we have with kids these days. So let's take a minute to talk through that, talk about what's going on and how to find out if that's an issue with your kiddo or you yourself. My favorite way to do that is using our fuse box poster here. And this is something that we've got all over the office here at Thrive because we're talking about it so much. But let me lay this out for you. Don't stress if you can't see every word or thing on there, just the concept here. Think of this like a fuse box in your house, right? A fuse to the kitchen blows, all the downstream stuff, the fridge, the oven, the microwave, all that's not going to work. In that situation in real life, you're not going to go home and start thinking, oh, I need to buy all new appliances or I need to go on a shopping spree. You're going to realize there's a cause. And that's what this word up top here. There's a cause. There's a power source issue behind the scenes. Same deal here. This right-hand column is a list of different symptoms, different challenges, different struggles that might be going on. Whether that's pains, achiness, or illnesses that are never going away, or GI system struggles, or focus and anxiety and stress issues. Regardless of what the symptom is here, medically speaking, there's a long list of different interventions and medications and treatments and drugs and surgeries and different ways we can address that. I'm not necessarily going to say those treatments are good or they're bad, because maybe there's a role or a time or a place for them. But what they are always focused on is here, that secondary symptom column, the downstream, not the why. It's never asking that cause question. It's never asking the why. And that's what we're obsessed with here, is saying, why is this taking place? In sense, if we back up to that brain and that nervous system and that operating system piece, if we realize that this is controlling everything else, if there's a blown fuse or stress or obstruction here at that underlying piece of it, well, all the downstream secondary issues are going to be affected too, regardless of whether that's the pain or the symptoms you might typically think of, or like I said, anything else in your body, because your nervous system is controlling all of it. Now, that is a very different approach than what we typically have medically. Because say, as often is the case, patients are coming in here with multiple challenges, right? They've got GI struggles and they can't sleep and they're stressed and overworked, or sensory processing issues going on as well. You've got all of these different challenges that medically we kind of silo and put in different buckets. You've got the specialist for this and the different one for that, and you might be on this medication for that, but then there's side effects that you've got to address in other ways, and it's this trying to pull the puppet strings of your health to manipulate it. But in reality is there might just be one underlying thing going on, right? All those secondary symptom issues might be just one underlying piece of a stressed out, dysregulated nervous system. And so that's got to be the starting point, right? Before we try to pull the puppet strings and manipulate our health, let's make sure that internally everything is operating as it's supposed to, because it really does simplify things, right? It really helps you realize that what might seem like a very ambiguous or confusing situation medically that doesn't really fit into any neat and tidy bucket is really just one underlying stressed out system. So that framework is how we think through everything. And that's why so many times in those initial conversations, people are like, oh my gosh, this connects so many dots, because in my mind, all these things I was dealing with were separate issues, but maybe they're really just one. And the cool part is we get to actually test that. We get to measure it. We don't have to guess about it. We've got 3 different neurological scans that we can do. And these 3 tests are going to let us answer that question of objectively monitoring, tracking what is going on neurologically. Are we functioning as we're supposed to, or are we dealing with some of those challenges or stressors that that are showing up in the right-hand column, showing up in the symptoms? This stuff matters, right? We care whether or not you or your kiddo is dealing with symptoms and struggles. It's just that piece of it doesn't help us get to the bottom of what you really need to help. So, like we always say, some of my corny chiropractor dad jokes, the scans dictate the plans, we don't guess, we test. It really is true. We will use that information to lay out a roadmap to make sure that we're getting to the bottom of some of those issues and having not just the temporary symptomatic relief, but really a new default mode and a new normal. You might have other questions or thoughts along those lines. Please send us a message, reach out. We'd be happy to chat more. Give the team a call. They can walk you through that process. And if you're like, you know what, I feel like that explains my scenario, definitely give us a call. We'll get you set up with those initial scans, that initial process to dig into where you're at, what's going on, and get a road map and a blueprint for going forward in a different direction. Can't wait to meet you in the office soon and help your family thrive.